In this third and final video, I will explain how December 10th tracks back to the enemy signaling of them saying peace and safety. We know that sudden destruction will follow. So that connects to the prophecies in Amos 8 and 9, Ezra 10, and like we just shared, Haggai chapter 2. So on December 10th, Kislev 24 this year, we have a reference to Martin Luther, to the Nobel Day, the awarding of the peace prizes, in addition to the UN adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And in this video, it is explained how the UN, and especially their Human Rights Proclamation, was an explicit and intended replacement of the Ten Commandments as worldwide moral and spiritual governing structure. And it became spearheaded by the Pope. And so officially, the Pope is adopting the role of moral and spiritual leader, supported by the UN. And we know that after this overruling of the Ten Commandments of God, they intend to replace this Human Rights Declaration with the coming Noahide laws. And you can read more about them over here. So the Noahide laws being the overarching criminal justice umbrella of the New World Order. The article is written in Dutch, but there's a translation widget on the page. So on the date of December 10th, there is a lot of historic reference with prophetic implication. It was the day in 1520 when Martin Luther publicly burned the papal edict demanding that he recant or face excommunication from the Catholic Church, because he was actually reforming the Catholic Church, but he was part of that church prior to that. And then we find the reference of the UN in 1948 adopting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And of course, that is connected to the foundation of Israel as well. So a little bit further, we find a reference to Yasser Arafat, Shimon Peres, and Yitzhak Rabin receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. So the Nobel Peace Prize, it's awarding on the 10th of December, and a lot of future candidates from that point onwards are listed. One of them coming to mind especially, and that was one day after the Norway spiral. Remember that President Barack Obama at the time accepted the Nobel Peace Prize with a quote-unquote humble acknowledgement of his scant accomplishments and a robust defense of the US at war. So while he had just started his presidency, he was already awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And we know that amongst all the Nobel Prizes, the Peace Prize has been set apart and is actually subject to an entirely different award structure. And if you look a little bit deeper into it, it is just about as corrupt as you can think. So that pertains to December 10th. So the 24th of Kislev was also December 9th in 1916. And that is a reminder of the British capturing Jerusalem from the Ottoman Turks. And the 25th of Kislev then is a really important bookend. Remember how we talked that the olive oil harvest was the final crop being offered to the temple, and that could be offered until Hanukkah. And actually the 25th of Kislev is the last day that the oil harvest could be taken to the temple according to the Jewish writings. And then the 25th of Kislev is the day of the pagan sacrifices in the temple, the ending of the temple abomination reminder, the time frame starting from Kislev 15. And of course, in the Jewish tradition, it is the Hanukkah miracle starting, the lasting of the oil for 8 days. It's also a reminder of Cain killing his younger brother Abel. So the first murder in history occurred on the 25th of Kislev in the year 41 from creation, which is recounted in the 4th chapter of Genesis. This is according to the Jewish account keeping of historic events. The 25th of Kislev is also the preparation of the tabernacle, its completion in the desert. So the vessels, the tapestries, the wall sections, and the other components of the Mishkan, the portable sanctuary or tabernacle built under Moses, was being readied on the 25th of Kislev in the year 2450 from creation, which is 1312 BC. The tabernacle, however, was not assembled until 3 months later, when, beginning on 25 Adar of that year, it was erected and then taken down daily for a 7-day training period, prior to the dedication of the tabernacle on the 1st of Nisan. And remember how that 1st of Nisan was also the bookend of the prophecy of the foreign wives being put away under Ezra. And then, after a reminder of the First Crusade and many Jews dying on the 26th of Kislev, we arrive at a really important bookend on the 27th of Kislev, because that's when the flood rains were accounted to have ceased. Remember how the flood rain started on Hesvan 17, the 17th day of the 8th month, and they would have stopped on the 27th of Kislev. So we are both still in the days of abomination right now and in the days of Noah, the prophetic time frame of the winter rains. And right at the 726 mark, tying in my hand to harpazo, we arrive at the heavenly signs the heavens declare for this week. And yes, at the end of this week, there's going to be a huge convergence of celestial signs, but that doesn't mean that what is happening in the beginning of this week is not interesting, because it is. And today we have the moon arriving in the sheep gate, in the lion's gate, in the head section of the constellation Leo, to pass the heart star regulars between the 6th and the 7th. And then there is a lot of meteor showers going on at this moment. One of them being the Cassiopeia meteor shower. That is the constellation of the Queen of Heaven, seated next to Cepheus, the King of Heaven. And then there is still the ongoing Monoceratid meteor shower, the unicorn in the celestial silver gate. So that is just underneath Gemini, next to Orion, and underneath Auriga and the constellation Taurus. And there is also a meteor shower at the Hydra constellation underneath Leo and Virgo. So that section of the head of Hydra is also being highlighted. And then there is an interesting event going on, because Mars will cut the ribbon. This is the ribbon tied to the trodden down fish, the horizontal fish, which will run parallel to the ecliptic. And that cutting, because Mars progresses relatively slowly, takes place in between the 7th and the 9th of December. So Mars will cross the ribbon of the trodden down fish in the constellation Pisces. And here you see that. Visualize the two fish, the upright fish, the trodden down fish, are connected with a ribbon to the sea monster, also referred to as the big fish or the whale. And we can see how the constellation Aries, reflective of the Lord, is cutting the bands of the Pisces constellation. And actually, this fish is connected to Andromeda, the princess, directing toward Cassiopeia, the queen, where the meteor shower is right now. And the trodden down fish is connected to the constellation Pegasus, the Lord coming with wings to take his trodden down home to heaven. So that is what Mars is reflective of the Archangel Michael and war, and that is a connection to the cutting of that ribbon. We also see a reflection in the iPad goat of a whale carcass and a war scenario with red dots, Mars being a red planet, and they are approaching a peace sign. And we know that the peace sign is a couple of days away. On December 10th is that reference to the Nobel Peace Prize. And in this traversal on the floor, this reflection of that planetary traversing the sun, we actually see two fish like Pisces and war entering into that scene amidst a whale carcass. So we can see how this scenario of the whale carcass, the fish, this war type, or Mars traversing this ribbon of the fish, how that is being played out in that particular scene of the iPad goat. And tomorrow, on the other side of the ecliptic, we can see that the planet Venus, type of the beloved, the bright and morning star, Jesus is the bright and morning star, is in the constellation Libra. And although it is depicted here as a set of scales, it is actually biblically the altar of redemption with 4 horns and a ramp towards the altar. And then on the 10th of December, we see a very interesting lineup, because if you look closely how the planet Mercury, the messenger, but also related to the thief coming, is connected to the sun and the reflective of Jesus as the bridegroom, how they have both entered the tabernacle, or the 2 legs, the 2 pillars of the strong man, Ophiuchus, the restrainer. He is restraining the serpent, and the head of the serpent is actually aspiring to seize the corona borealis, the northern crown, how they have both crossed the star Antares. So we see the sun and Mercury in the tabernacle of the pillars of Ophiuchus, having passed or overcome the heart star of the scorpion, and on their way to the death sting of the scorpion. That death sting we know will not pertain to the bride of Christ or the innocents, because we will be glorified and transformed at the time of the rapture. So the essential signs for this week are concluded with a get-together of the moon and the star, the branch star Spica, the ear of corn, which is held in Virgo's left hand, and that takes place on December 10th as well. And that is when the moon crosses the asterism and the birth section, the upper body section of the constellation Virgo. So with this final image of the beautiful get-together of the moon and the branch star, I'm going to conclude this set of videos. I'm noticing that my voice is starting to crack a bit, so I'm going to make myself a really hot tea with some honey before I go to sleep. I hope this series has been a blessing to you. I would love to read your comments and feedback and input in the comment section, or just send me a message through email if you prefer a private message. Much love.